It's time to lace them up. It's time to clean and polish the tools of the trade. It's time to strike gold. It's time for 4 of the Pro Bowlers Tour's best to take their approach and let it all hang loose. Now it's time.
We're here in Akron, Ohio, and today CBS presents its inaugural event on the Pro Bowlers Tour. Inside Stonehenge Family Fun Center for the Bayer Brunswick Touring Players Championship. Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Seibel, and once again, welcome to the debut of the PBA Tour here on CBS. I'm joined by PBA Hall of Famer Marshall Holman. And Marshall, as you well know, bowling is a different game nowadays. There have been quite a few significant changes in the sport.
Gary, there certainly have. Starting with the pro pin. Not only is the color changed, this pin is 4 ounces heavier. It's going to be a little tougher for our pros to knock them down. And our format, it has changed as well. 79 players started this week. Only 4 advanced to our to our television finals. There'll be a 3-player shootout, and the winner, he'll bowl against the #1 qualifier in the final match. And if there are any ties, there'll be a 1-shot roll-off to break the tie.
Well, in today's TPC, 4 of the PBA's best and accomplished quartet. Marshall, who are we going to see?
Well, we're going to start out with our tournament leader, Parker Bohn III. And Parker Bohn, he made that big charge in the last 8 games of match play in order to get the #1 seed today. And he's going to have a tough time today because he's got 3 great players, starting with Mike Aulby. He's won every major championship in pro bowling, and he's looking to add to his already impressive resume. Pete Weber, he's looking to be Player of the Year. He wants that honor, and this title could get him 1 step closer to achieving just that. And then we have Dennis Horan. He's from San Diego, California, and he finds himself as the underdog in this power-laden field today.
All right, we're set to begin our shootout round in the Touring Players Championship. The winner of the match today gets $40,000. And up first will be Pete Weber.
Soft 10 from Pete Weber in the opening shot. Made a good shot, just couldn't quite get the 6-pin. Couldn't get that 6-pin to bounce back out and get the 10 out. Hard and straight at the spare, and no problem for Pete Weber.
So Pete Weber starts things out with a spare in frame #1 of our shootout round. Next up, left-hander Mike Aulby.
And the always opportunistic Mike Aulby. I look for him to be very, very tough in this match. And virtually the same hit for the left-handers that Pete Weber had on the right side.
And of course, for the lefties, Marshall, it would be a 7. For the righties, the 10-pin.
We'll see a few of those today. And once again, I believe the heavier wood is going to play a part in those corner pins. And he's out of the gate with a spare as well.
So our second bowler in the shootout round, Mike Aulby matching Pete Weber, both with spares in frame #1. Dennis Horan Jr., he has been hot, and he's up next.
Well, he really, really bowled great yesterday in the first 8 games of match play to get himself in position. He starts out with a power strike.
Dennis Horan with a 300 game yesterday on Friday, and also a couple of 290s.
Remember, only the high score advances to our next match. Pete Weber in the 2nd frame. Something distracted him, but the pins are falling. And we'll take a look at the 4-pin. It's going to get knocked down. I believe it's going to be going down slowly. Pete was distracted, but not enough to change his chances of striking.
Well, Marshall, that's our CBS MacCam, named after John McEnroe for obvious reasons. It was used on the lines for all those tight line calls at the U.S. Open. Here's Mike Aulby.
And success for Mike Aulby in the second frame. You may have noticed Pete Weber was distracted. He said there was a flash that was sent off. No flash cameras allowed. Somebody wasn't listening earlier.
And now Dennis Horan, who started things out in the first with a strike.
Just to take an early 10-pin lead over Aulby and Weber. Gotta hurry. And he comes in light. And leaves the difficult spare. He's got the 2, 5, and 6. A lot of ways to make it, but certainly a lot of ways to miss it as well.
Marshall Dennis converts the spare in frame number 2. And we'll be moving along to the third frame in our shootout rounds of today's Touring Players Championship.
And everything is dead even right now. Advantage for Weber and Aulby working on strikes. And a terrible break for Pete Weber. Ball driving, not quite able to get out the 9-pin. We'll take a look. Watch the ball as it comes through. It's going to drive straight through and go past the 9-pin.
And Pete will convert in frame number 3. So starts it out with a couple of spares and a strike for Pete Weber, and Mike Aulby will try his luck in frame number 3.
Mike Aulby with the opportunity to take an early lead of 10 pins. As you see Mike's average for the week. Great concentration for this man from Indianapolis. And an early 10-pin lead. And we'll take a look at a shot of Mike Aulby. Watch the way the ball drives to the right, hitting the 5-pin, taking care of the pins, and a great reaction from Mike. Dennis Horan, lane 27. He struck both times there.
Well, we've got more coming up from Akron in just a moment. Seibel and Marshall Holman back here in Akron, Ohio at the Touring Players Championship. Well, time now to take a look at our Alka-Seltzer Friday night recap. And as we mentioned, Dennis Horan Jr., a great day on Friday. 300-game couple in the 290s, moving from 17th to 4th yesterday to get himself into today's television round.
Certainly was the moment for him yesterday, was able to capitalize. We see him here today. Now we have Pete Weber working on a spare. He left that very, very bad break, solid 9 in the third frame. Trying to get back on track. And I've seen it very, very many times coming out of commercial. A little tentative, got a little slow, and now he's left with a difficult 3-4-10 split. Can be made, but a tough one.
Marshall, we have 3 lefties, and Pete Weber being the only righty here. Is that an advantage for Pete?
Well, I thought it was until he threw that last shot, Gary. Very close, but it's only going to be 9 out for Pete Weber, and that really puts him in a very, very difficult position right now.
Well, Pete could not convert in frame number 4. Last year, he became only the 2nd player in PBA history to go over $2 million in earnings, along with Walter Ray Williams Jr. Here's Mike Aulby.
Going for 3 in a row on lane 27. Aulby making a statement early.
And so at this juncture, Aulby up now by 20 pins over Weber and Horan. And here is Dennis Horan Jr.
Horan working on a strike, Gary. Can cut into Aulby's lead and needs it. And right now, nothing going the way of Weber or Horan, and Aulby is looking in very, very good shape, but still early in the match.
Like you, Marshall, an avid golfer. Carries a 7 handicap, does Dennis Horan Jr.
Played a little golf with Dennis.
And just gets it in the 4th, Dennis Horan Jr. Crowd chanting for Weber, and he answers and comes through for the folks here at Stonehenge Family Fun Center. Touring Players Championship. Pete, an intense individual. Our TV pair today, lanes 27 and 28. Left-hander Mike Aulby up on lane 28. 3 strikes in a row, looking for a 4-bagger. All right now we're going down to Marshall Holman. Marshall?
Okay, with me, Parker Bohn III. Parker, first of all, how do you like this new format?
It looks like it's pretty exciting so far. You got 3 guys really going neck and neck out there.
Well, I thought it might be the right-hander Pete Weber, but right now it looks like it could be you and Mike Aulby. You bowled him before for this title.
Yeah, I sure have. I'm actually looking for a little reminiscence here, and I owe him one.
All right, well, good luck to you, Parker.
Thanks.
Gary, back to you.
Well, all 3 of our bowlers in the shootout round came up with strikes in frame number 5, but Mike Aulby still with a 30-pin advantage as Pete Weber stands on the approach for the 6th. And we'll take a look at Pete's reaction.
And he did it.
Just 1 standing.
Excuse me, Gary, he did it again. He left a solid 9, and that really has been trouble for Pete Weber. He throws such a powerful ball, sometimes too much power, even on these heavier pins.
Well, converts the spare in the 6th, but still Mike Aulby with the lead. Mike working on a 4-bagger up by 30 pins.
30 pins on Horan, 44 on Pete Weber. Gets the very, very friendly roll of the 7-pin. We take a look at Mike Aulby, that classic style. It's won 25 tournaments. And look at the reaction. You know he loves that one. Dennis Horan not ready to give up.
And Dennis Horan answers Mike Aulby. We'll be back to Akron in a moment. And a look at our CBS Sports Spectacular scoreboard. You can see Mike Aulby, a 30-pin lead on Dennis Horan Jr., who is presently 2nd. Well, we're going to be heading out west, Tucson Open. Saturday, May 2nd, our next event here for the PBA Tour on CBS, the American Bowling Congress Masters. That's coming up on Saturday, May 9th. And back now to bowling action, frame number 7. Pete Weber has his work cut out.
Well, he very well must strike right here. He just needs to put some pressure on the 2 left-handers. He raises his arms and a little high. Just not happening for Pete. I really looked for him to do well today, but tough going so far.
And speaking with Pete yesterday, Marshall, he mentioned that he thought he had a huge advantage bowling from the right side as opposed to the lefties.
Well, you would think so, but that's why they bowl the game. It looked like an advantage prior to starting, but right now the advantage, he's up on lane 28.
So he does convert the spare, but Mike Aulby right now with a comfortable lead over both Weber and Dennis Horan. Mike Aulby, PBA Rookie of the Year, 1979.
You can see how consistent he was by rounds. Never lower than 3rd. And the ringing 7-pin, the flush 7-pin, very good shot for Mike Aulby.
Only Rookie of the Year, Marshall, to come back and win Player of the Year honors, 1985, 1995.
Well, he really has done it all in professional bowling, and all he wants to do is just win another title. That's his goal each and every week. A nice conversion. And Mr. Aulby was a little bit distracted, but it didn't seem to bother him too much. He makes the 7-pin.
Dennis Horan Jr. working on a pair of strikes.
Opportunity to be only 19 down if he strikes here, but it's got to hurry, and that's just a bad shot from Dennis Horan. And a difficult washout for Dennis. Has to get the ball right of the head pin and makes a great cover. He's still in this match, Gary.
Great shot by Dennis Horan Jr., resident of San Diego.
Pete Weber with a possible 2:15 game if he takes it all the way out. Sort of says thank you to the pins, maybe a little sarcastic.
Gets himself back on track in the 8th frame. Pete ranked 2nd by the PBA in their computer rankings.
Well, he's a vastly talented player as we now take a look at Mike Aulby working on a spare. He's 33 pins ahead of his closest competitor, Dennis Horan, and would like to start striking again right here. And he does so.
Aulby won this event in 1996 when it was contested in Pittsburgh, and guess who he beat? Marshall Parker Bohn III. Parker may meet up today then again.
It looks like they will meet up today, and Parker very much aware of that. As Dennis Horan says, I'm still here, Mike. I'm 33 down, but I'm still here. And he's shaking his head because of the shot he threw in the previous frame. He knew that was his chance for any slim hope. Well, still 2:15 is possible for Pete Weber. Has a very slight chance.
And a double for Pete Weber. Mike Aulby, though, still in command.
Right now, to set the scene, if Dennis Horan were to strike out, he could shoot 236. Mike Aulby going at a 239 pace. So Aulby just needs to keep marking and hold the count up, not lose count. He'll be in good shape. A strike here would certainly go a long way to getting in one step closer to Parker Bohn. Does he mean business?
Well, I think he does. I think that Parker Bohn would like an opportunity to meet up with him again.
He's going to get that opportunity, and take a look at that reaction. He knows he's in good shape right now. Now, Dennis Horan must strike here, or Mike Aulby is just going to waltz into that final match. This is a lane he had trouble on the last frame. No trouble this time.
So Dennis Horan Jr. keeps it interesting in our shootout round, but Mike Aulby still in command. 33 pins up on Horan Jr.
And Weber and there's another 9-pin? No, I believe it just fell. Almost 3 solid 9s for Pete Weber. And
looks like Pete stared it down, Marshall.
Yeah, Pete's thinking of what might have been if he'd have carried those other 2 9-pins. We take a look at Pete Weber, the classic style, ball coming in high flush. 9-pin wiggling, 9-pin falling. And he will shoot in the 2 teens, but it will not be enough for Pete Weber, as Mike Aulby right now with an open in the 10th frame would still be shooting in the 230s. It's going to be between Horan and Aulby, and really Mike has got it his way right now. That's still a good finish, a 4th place finish for the disappointed Pete Weber. He will be back. You can count on it.
So Pete Weber, 2:15, not good enough to make it into the championship match with Parker Bohn III. But Mike Aulby is staring that rematch right in the face.
And with any kind of a mark in the 10th frame, he will go against Parker Bohn III. That's got to hurry. We have a chance for Dennis Horan with that shot right there. If he does not pick this up, Dennis Horan can get up in the 10th frame and throw 2 strikes with a good count. He'll be bowling Parker Bohn III. He knows he's got a chance now. And that is very unusual for Mike Aulby to make that kind of mistake in a key situation.
Aulby does a self-talk every time he's up on the approach.
To shut him out. Makes makes the great shot, wraps the pin around the 7. Dennis Horan has the opportunity now as Mike Aulby finishes with 234. Dennis Horan needs 2 strikes and 9 in order to win this match and go against Parker Bohn III. Nothing Mike Aulby can do right now but just sit and kind of hope. Must have the first one.
There it is.
And notice the way he keeps himself cool. Not a lot of emotion. He knows he's got more work to do, preparing himself now for the second ball in the 10th. One more strike, 9 pins or better, he's your winner. A strike and 8, and we have a tie.
32 years old, started bowling at the age of 10. He's got a shot to move into the championship match.
He's got to hurry. And it does. As he pumps himself up a little more excited there, he still has work to do. Needs 9 for the win, 8 for a tie. Anything less than 8. Now watch this reaction, Gary. He knows the importance of that shot.
And that's a lot of what we saw from Dennis Horan Jr. yesterday when he moved from 17th to 4th place. He was definitely focused in. He has to be that way now. Needs 9 pins to win it.
Mike Aulby can only watch as Dennis Horan throws the ball. It looks good, and he is going to bowl. Parker Bohn III. Now get excited, Dennis. Now you can have fun. He is there in the title match, and who would have ever thought Mike Aulby would have thrown an errant shot in a key situation like that. As we take a look, this is the reaction. He needs 9. He knows it's a good shot. He's got it. He's won it. And now we take a look at Mike's reaction, and he is not very pleased with himself. He knows that he really gave himself a great opportunity.
We will not see Aulby and Bohn. We'll see Horan Jr. and Bohn III. Welcome back to Akron and CBS coverage of the Touring Players Championship. Here's a look at our scoreboard, and as you can see, Dennis Horan Jr. coming through in a big way, 236, beating Mike Aulby by 2 pins. Getting set for our championship match, but first to look back at the 20 other finalists this week at the TPC. And there you see Parker Bohn III, top seed, warming up for our championship match. And here you see Jeff Zaffino just missed the show. Walter Ray Williams Jr. came here this week riding a 2-tournament winning streak, including last week's U.S. Open. Number 10, Jason Couch, Claremont, Florida, 1993 Touring Players Championship winner. Then on to number 16, Ernie Schlegel, the PBA's Ironman, the 1995 Touring Players Championship victor. At number 20, Tom Baker, Buffalo, New York, having a great year, denied, though, a 4th top 5 finish this week. And at number 23, Tim Chris of Bel Air, Maryland. He's coming off a breakthrough year, finished 2nd last week in the U.S. Open to Walter Ray Williams Jr. Lane conditions are always an important factor at any match, and for more on that, here's Marshall Holman with our tip of the week.
The average bowler probably doesn't think the oil in the lane affects his or her game. Well, think again. While bowlers can count on relatively uniform condition at the top of play, once the bowling begins, the oil starts to move, and there's more movement than you might think. These printouts show the movement of the oil on the lane. Before bowling begins, you'll see the various layers of oil consistent throughout. The printout after match play tells quite a different story. You'll notice in this case, the oil has moved down the lane considerably. It might seem surprising, but the movement of the oil does affect your game. Now, pro bowlers will take oil movement into account and adjust their release to accommodate for the conditions. You should do the same. For example, if your ball is hooking early, think about projecting the ball further down the lane to avoid the dry boards in the first 10 to 15 feet. This is just one method that allows you to handle the varied conditions as the play progresses.
Lane conditions are set, play will progress, and we'll return to the Bayer Brunswick Touring Players Championship after this message and a word from your local station. All right, Akron, we want to hear it. And welcome Welcome back to Stonehenge Family Fun Center, Akron, Ohio, for the Touring Players Championship. Appearing in the first and fifth frame for this championship match is the butt pin. If either bowler strikes with his head pin in place, $1,000 will be donated to the PBA Tour Foundation, courtesy of Anheuser-Busch. Parker Bohn III, Dennis Horan Jr. in the championship match for $40,000.
Two left-handed players, two very, very competent bowlers. Take a look at the style of Parker Bohn III. Perhaps the loveliest player on the foul line in professional bowling. And maybe a little too much energy as he leaves the 3-pin coming in light on lane 27.
Parker from Jackson, New Jersey, as you said, Marshall, a left-hander, 5'11", 150, 34 years old. Started bowling at the age of 6.
And this just in, he's good. No problem with the conversion. That'll be interesting to see if Dennis Horan has any legs left after that last match. You expend a lot of energy coming back like that. Can he get himself back together in order to give Parker Bohn a good run?
Well, he is on the approach, ready for frame number 1 in the championship match.
The lane he struck out on, he's still got it.
So far, so good for Horan Jr. That's $1,000 to the PBA Tour Foundation, courtesy of Anheuser-Busch.
To take an early 10-pin lead, Dennis Horan on lane 27. Very important for Dennis. He's not the kind of player that's going to get to our finals as often as Parker Bohn. Wants to make the most of it. And a little high, leaving the solid 6-pin.
And Marshall, a replay from the Mac Cam.
We take a look, the ball coming in just a little high. Pin goes to the sideboard. It nudges the 6-pin, but it's not to be. Dennis going for the spare. Remain even. And puts a little excitement into spare shooting. You know, generally they go hard and straight for the spares. Dennis decided to hook that ball and almost paid a very, very big price.
Dennis ranked 47th by the PBA, won the first ever arena finals in Erie, Pennsylvania in 1994.
Oh my gosh. Just gets the 10-pin to fall out. That was almost the pocket 7-10, and truly one of the bad breaks in professional bowling in general. Parker fortunate just to have the 7-pin standing. He will throw this ball hard and straight. Won't be a lot of curve on this one for Parker. And he picks it up. Parker Bohn with the opportunity to pass Earl Anthony to go into 9th place on the all-time leading money list with a victory this week. So a little history for Parker if he can win this tournament.
Also looking for his second title of the year, won the first title of 1998, the Brentwood Classic.
A little slower. Pays dividends for Parker Bohn. Slowed the ball speed down just a little bit, Gary. Enabled the ball to roll up into the pocket. Take a look at his reaction. He knows it's a great shot. And now Dennis Horan back up in the 3rd frame, leading by 1. Needs a strike to keep that lead. Now Dennis Horan leading by 1, can increase it to 11 with a strike in the 4th frame on lane 27. Remember, he came in a little high last time, Gary. A little more room, but he didn't get the proper ball speed. There's the big mistake that you just don't want to have. The big 4. And if you're going to try and make this, well, as far as I'm concerned, your best chance to make this is to push the reset button. This is almost impossible. He'll try and bounce the pins around, but probably just going to take 8. That's all he got.
Dennis didn't make a telecast in 1997. Had a couple of chances this year, he told me, but missed them both.
And right now, sitting on the bench, Parker Bohn is given a 13-pin lead. and his opportunity to take that to 23 with a strike of his own on the right-hand lane. There he comes. Great shot for Parker. We take a look at Parker Bohn III, that beautiful arm swing, that long flowing follow through. Gets the good tap of the 7, and there's a reaction from a player who knows the importance of each strike in a final match.
Parker Bohn up by 23.
Well, virtually the same thing he did in the opening frame, coming in light on 27. And today, the lanes are not hooking back as much as they were throughout most of the week, Gary. The lanes are what we call tighter, which means it's just harder to make the ball hook.
3-9 lead for Parker Bohn III.
And not an easy one. Must make sure the ball drives through to get that sleeper 9-pin. A lot of angle, hooking the ball at it, and a good conversion.
So converts the spare in frame number 5. And Dennis Horan Jr. down by 21 pins, up in the 5th on lane 28.
Will it hold? Better speed and better projection down the lane. He really got good loft on that ball. Was able to keep the ball into the pocket. Forgetting the bad shot in the 4th frame. Nothing you can do once it's over. You just have to go on, do the best you can. As you can see, 18-6 in match play. That's an incredibly good match play record. Really helped to make him one of our finalists today. Right back in it. Cuts that lead to 11 pins.
So Dennis Horan Jr. keeps himself in the game. We've got lots more coming up in the TPC in just a moment. We'll take a look at the scoreboard, and you see Parker Bohn III up by 11 over Dennis Horan Jr. Let's let them get back to bowling.
And Parker Bohn working on a spare. Dennis Horan right back in the match, and the toughest shot to throw coming out of commercial. Can Parker handle it? That would be a very much affirmative. And there's his girlfriend, Leslie Beamish, who hasn't been feeling real well of late, but she's here and feeling better and rooting Parker on.
Not feeling well, but here all day yesterday, and it was a long day on Friday, and she stuck it out, and it was a little chilly in the center, so she was bundled up, but did remain here throughout the day.
Parker Bohn going for a double to take a 22-pin lead, and there's a huge mistake for Parker. My gosh, he cuts right through the center of the pins, leaving a 6-pin split. We'll take a look at the ball. It just hooks through the dead center of the pins, leaving an absolute mess, and Parker knows the ramifications of that big split. Very difficult to try and make this. There's a slight chance, but he needs to get the ball to hook into the 2-pin and still carry out the 9. Didn't quite get the ball far enough up. The 2-pin and the 6-pin remain, and what was a lead has now turned into a 3-pin deficit for Parker Bohn III.
Well, interestingly enough, Marshall, Parker only missed one spare this tournament all week long. It was the 2-4-7, the one he just left a little bit uglier than that.
Yeah. Dennis Horan right now with the opportunity to make a 13-pin lead. And look at this. Who would have thought halfway through the last match that Dennis Horan would even be here? Now he's up by 13, very much in the driver's seat in our championship game.
Dennis told me, Marshall, earlier in his career, he had trouble getting sponsors. So his folks sponsored him in 1994, made $80,000, paid him back, and then sponsored himself after that. So Dennis Horan Jr. did a heck of a job.
Yes, he did. And to all those people that had a chance at Dennis Horan, it's a little late now. Hang on. Look at this. Dennis Horan with 4 strikes in a row, putting a lot of pressure on Parker Bohn. Now with a 23-pin lead. Dennis Horan running him out, getting excited. Watch the ball. It's going to hook back hard to the right. Take a look at the 4-pin, kicks out the 7. And the reaction of a bowler who knows he's getting that much closer to one of the major titles in professional bowling. Great shot from Parker Bohn, and he is so disappointed with the way he threw the ball on 27. Right now, Parker Bohn, if he strikes out, Gary, he's got a chance to shoot 223. Right now, Dennis Horan working at a 216 pace, so the match still very much in jeopardy.
You know, even though Parker was leading throughout most of the tournament this week, he told me that he did struggle quite a bit on Friday morning. Kind of looks like he's struggling once again.
Well, having a little trouble. Must figure out. Lane 27 really needs this strike. And what a great shot from Parker. Cuts that lead down, and more importantly, Gary, it puts a little bit of a message, sends a message to Dennis Horan saying that I'm still around. As we take a look at Parker Bohn, this is what he's been wanting all day. High flush in the pocket, and he knows it was a great shot.
So Dennis Horan Jr. up by 13, and he shoots in the ninth.
Just that much closer for Dennis Horan. Kind of breathes a sigh of relief. That ball was a little left. As you can see, he's making a motion to say, I yanked that, I pulled it, and you got away with it.
Dennis Horan Jr. married to wife Terry. They've got one daughter, Courtney. She's going to be 3 in August, so this would be a nice pre-birthday present.
Well, it'll be a wonderful present for the entire Horan family. As you can see by our graphic, 5 consecutive strikes for Dennis. Needs to fill 18 pins in order to win this tournament. A strike here, it'll be it. There's your winner, Dennis Horan. He comes back from absolutely nowhere in our last match, makes the big charge late in this match. He is going to win the Bear Touring Players Championship, and Parker Bohn, being the good sport that he is, gives him 5. Here's your key shot. Dennis Horan, knowing what a big shot it is, and he makes a great shot. High flush in the pocket. Here's the reaction of our champion, yelling, screaming, I just won. Dennis Horan from San Diego, his 3rd PBA title, Gary, and quite an excited man.
13 years with the PBA, Marshall, 16 Western regional titles, but as you pointed out, just his 3rd national title. He is one happy guy.
Just finishing it out. Now, things certainly went Dennis's way today, and Parker, once again, he is a great sport. Congratulating our champion, Dennis Horan Jr.
245 for Dennis Horan Jr.
And the best Mike Aulby can do right now is 202. I'm sorry, my mistake. That is Parker Bohn III. The best he can do is 202. I should know these guys better. I've known them for years.
And bowled against quite a few of them.
Yes, I have, and I'm happy to say that good to be up here with you, Gary. Those guys are too tough for me right now.
Well, you don't want me to start to list your number of accomplishments. They are many.
And for Parker Bohn, we will see him again. He's a perennial television finalist on our tour, averages about 10 appearances a year, which is really phenomenal. But today, he wasn't able to get it done, and unfortunate for Parker Bohn III. But for our champion, Dennis Horan Jr., what seemed like the most unlikely of our top 4 to win the tournament, he's your champion. He is one happy man, and he's going to be throwing some souvenirs to the people here at Stonehenge Place.
And we'll take a look at the score. 245 for Dennis Horan Jr., 202 for Parker Bohn III. Dennis Horan Jr. comes out of the clouds Friday and captures it all today, his 3rd career PBA title. And here is the reaction to his huge strike that won it all. Dennis Horan Jr. just a tad happy.
Well, there's the winning shot. Dennis Horan Jr. just watched the form. All the years of practice came to this one shot for Dennis Horan. He gets it done as we take a look at another great reaction from Dennis Horan Jr. He's the champion of the Brunswick Touring Player Championship. We'll be back in a moment with our champion.